Ever since the United Kingdom released UKFP, or the UK Foundation Program, to allow for international medical graduates who do not have a settled visa status, so they're not British, they're not European, to enter into their program, a lot of IMGs have been messaging and asking us, is it a good idea? Should I apply for the UKFP? Is this something I should be thinking about? So let's talk about it.
If this is the first time you're checking out our channel, welcome. Basically what we do is we run a website that's totally free known as roadtok.com, and it will explain the ins and outs about everything related to the United Kingdom and what it takes for you to work as a doctor in the NHS. So if you've not already, please stalk us on all of our social media. Find us on Facebook, find us on Twitter, Instagram, and of course, YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe.
Hi everyone, my name is Ibreez and I currently work as a doctor in the NHS, and let's talk about what the UK Foundation Program is. So the UKFP is basically the UK's internship. It is a 2-year rotational internship for individuals when they finish medical school. That's what they go into. Your country must also have an internship, and this is what the UK's equivalent is, the UKFP. Now, if you want to know more about the UKFP in details, like, the application timeline, deadlines, whatever things that you have to do, we have an entire playlist dedicated to that. I don't want to get into that today. Today, what we're talking about is whether or not you should do internship in the United Kingdom. So I think the best way to go about this is thinking about it in terms of like pros and cons, and basically in what situation would you even want to think about doing the foundation program. Really, there are only two places or two situations where you would be thinking about the foundation program. Firstly, if you're currently a medical student, you're watching me and you're like, this sounds good. This is something you can think about. The other situation would be that you've been granted provisional registration by the General Medical Council. This typically occurs if you have graduated from a medical college or a country where there is no acceptable pattern of internship as per GMC's criteria. So if you're in either one of these situations, if you're thinking, all right, should I be doing this now? What are my options? Let's look at it in terms of pros and cons. So if we start with the pros, with the United Kingdom Foundation Program, like I've already said, it is an internship. So if you're already thinking about coming to the United Kingdom and you're like, I do want to work in the UK, I do want to train in the UK, why not start from the very beginning? Internship in general does not come with a lot of stressors. There aren't huge and high expectations of an individual at that level. You would have the opportunity and the ability from the very beginning to see how the NHS works. You have rotational posts, so like you would in your own country, you'd be rotating through surgery, medicine, obs, gynae, etc., etc. And of course, you were there. You can have an idea of, is this specialty the thing that I really want to do? Is this how it works in the NHS? Oh, okay. That is a really, really, really big advantage for someone who's thinking about the United Kingdom Foundation Program. The other thing you have an advantage for is that from the UK, you can build your entire portfolio. Now, that doesn't mean that your portfolio would be necessarily considered better than somebody who's made their portfolio outside of the United Kingdom, but a lot of international graduates know that there are certain things that the portfolio rubrics that the specialty training programs are looking for that are very difficult to get outside of the United Kingdom, just because your country maybe doesn't do those things like audits or quality improvement projects or attending particular conferences or courses. So that is something else that you can get done if you're already in the UKFP. The third thing that is very advantageous is you're getting paid. I don't know why international doctors often think that these types of things are not paid, but you're an intern, you're going to be working, you will be paid. So it's not a bad idea to think about that. Now, you may argue with me, well, maybe the pay in your country is better than the pay for UKFP. I don't know. I don't know how much your internship pays in your country, but what I will tell you is, of course, there is a salary that you'd be taking home. The other thing that we've mentioned in general previously in videos, and this also applies with an internship, is you would be keeping to the criteria and the timelines of the work time directive. So you would be working those average 48 hours that I mentioned previously in a video. You wouldn't be expected to do crazy number of hours or have, ridiculous on-calls or anything like that. And of course, the other important part of this is because you are an intern, just as you are in any other training program, you would be in a structured training program. There are portfolio curriculum requirements. You would have supervisors who would tell you, okay, this is what you need to do now, this is how you can go about it. And if you're thinking about joining a particular specialty, especially if that specialty is competitive, you would be able to surround yourself with individuals who could help point you in that right direction because, I mean, you're already there. You just need to look around and ask. The last most important pro is, guys, you will be sponsored for this. A lot of times people get really confused when they look at the eligibility criteria and that it says, oh, I have to prove, I have the right to work. Yes, you won't have the right to work if you don't have a settled visa status in the United Kingdom, and that's okay. They will sponsor you. This is why the foundation program wasn't available previously, or at least readily available previously to international graduates, because they would not sponsor you. But now they do sponsor you, so you would get a visa, you'd get a salary, you can build your portfolio, you'll be working. I mean, sounds good. But let's get into the cons. Probably the biggest con when people hear about this is that, what do you mean a 2-year internship? In my country, it's only a 1-year internship. I know there are also some countries out there that do have a 2-year internship, but for those of you that are from countries that only have a 1-year internship, I understand. I can see completely why you're like, well, why would I come there and do a longer internship than what I have in my own country? What you need to remember, though, is yes, GMC will accept your 1-year internship, but remember, before you can actually enter into a training program, GMC, the programs, the training programs and everything will want you to have another year of post-internship experience by the time your training post starts. So guess how many years that comes to before you start training? It's 2 years. So you'll have to add on that extra year eventually anyway. But don't let that be something that puts you off when you actually think about how your timeline would work out. The other thing that a lot of people get pretty frustrated about is, well, there's not actually a guarantee where you go. Now, yes, there is a national ranking system. You can put, I want to be at this hospital, this hospital, this hospital. All right. But at the end of the day, depending on how well you actually do in the recruitment process, you may or may not get the place that you want to be. Now, that doesn't mean it's the end of the world. You might be like, well, now what? I didn't get to where I wanted to be. But you ranked those places anyway. So that must mean that you still had some desire to go there. Please don't rank places that you don't want to go to. It doesn't help you, and it doesn't help other individuals who are also thinking about, where they would want to get into. The other thing is about the rotations. You might not get the exact rotation that you want. Yes, again, when you're ranking, you can see your rotations in your hospitals, but if you didn't get the hospital rotations that you wanted, you might be like, well, why even do the foundation program? But that should not be the mindset that you have going into this. Going into this, you should be like, I'm happy to go and train. I'm happy to go and learn. The rotations that you have at this time, it doesn't matter later on. So maybe you want to be a pediatrician, but you don't have a peds rotation in foundation year. That doesn't automatically then disqualify you from applying for specialty training for peds later on. So it's nothing like that. You shouldn't get worked up if you don't have it. You can always, during your training time, have the opportunity to what they call taster weeks. We have a video about taster weeks if you want to know more about that. And that's something that would at least give the opportunity to see how those other specialties work. Now, because of the nature of the foundation program and the fact that there is a strict timeline, you may have to wait a while before you actually start the program itself. Or you may not even be eligible during that time because perhaps the eligibility application only opens from June to July, but you won't graduate from medical school until August, which would mean you would have to wait until the next year to apply and the year after that to actually start. This would then create a gap. It's not that this gap would prevent you from doing anything or you would have any sort of disadvantage. You would just be waiting around for a while. So in those situations, you might actually think to yourself, maybe, I know I really want to get to the UK as soon as possible, but maybe the foundation program isn't the best idea just because of how many gaps I would have or how much time it would take me to get there, and it might actually make things longer for me at the end of the day. The last thing you have to keep in mind now is just because you did the foundation program in the United Kingdom, it wouldn't necessarily mean your country would then accept it as an acceptable internship. So a lot of international doctors have messaged us and asked and said, well, look, I want to come and do the foundation program, but I contacted my country's medical regulatory board, and they said if I don't do an internship in my country, regardless of how much experience I get abroad or what exams I complete, I would not really amount to anything in my country. I would have to do internship in my country and then go through that entire training program before they would recognize me. So that could be a very big con for some of you if you're thinking, I'm going to come work in the UK for some time and then retire to my country to work there, or work in both places at once. If you know that your country's medical regulatory board will accept it, then you have no issues at all. It's always a good idea to ask this question ahead of time. Or if you're thinking to yourself, do you know what, I will not return to my country. I will only practice as a doctor in the United Kingdom, and I'm happy with that. If I go home, it'll just be for vacation or to retire completely, not to practice as a doctor. So really, when you're wondering about whether or not you should do internship, it shouldn't be based on the judgment of others or what other people think is a good idea. It should really be what your pros and cons list are and what makes sense to you. If you're thinking to yourself, I really do want to do this because I think this is the best opportunity for me to get a head start, then do the internship. If you're thinking, I would really love to do it, I think it is a great opportunity, but unfortunately the stars aren't aligning, it is what it is. It's not the end of the world. There are a lot of things out there aside from the foundation programs, such as the FY2 standalone, or even doing a non-training job, or even if you're eligible, directly applying into a training program. So don't think that just because you didn't get into the UKFP or that boat sailed for you, that it's the end of the world. The UKFP wasn't even available for us to apply to when we started out. We still managed to get into training just fine. It's nothing for you to stress out about if you can't do it, but it is something for you to think about if it's available to you. If you still have doubts about the United Kingdom Foundation Program, like I said, go through our playlist. We have some myth-busting videos. We have videos about the timeline, the application criteria, whatever else you really need to know, and what exams you may potentially have to take. So the information is there, guys. Just take advantage of the fact that you have a lot of things available in front of you. The opportunity is there. Go for it. If you're still confused or unsure, if you think, actually, I need you to explain this to me a little bit further, more in depth, in a personalized level, we do have personalized guidance sessions that you can book, which I have linked in the description box below. But until next time, guys, please continue to follow us and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Subscribe to our newsletter. Check out our Road to UK forum, and we will see you next time. Bye.